Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast with your host, Ryan. This episode is brought to you by AdamandEve.com. Go to AdamandEve.com for a limited time only. You'll get 50% off of just about any item on the website. Promo code is HOOP, H-O-O-P. Today we're going to talk about the MVP race in the NBA. Right now, in case you haven't heard, Giannis Antetokounmpo is leading the league in scoring with 34.7 points per game. So he's averaging 35 buckets a game. It's crazy. It's insane. The reason it is because, a lot of people were like, oh, well, LeBron's going to get it. LeBron's probably going to get his fourth MVP trophy this year, while at the same time saying that the Cavs are going to just walk right into the finals, which is odd because they don't have a roster. The Cavs went from basically having 2 point guards when it comes to Kyrie Irving and LeBron, one of the best point guards of all time, but he's considered a small forward. However, it's an argument for a different day. LeBron is playing with shells of players. You got Dwayne Wade, who's always injured. You got Derrick Rose, who's always injured. So LeBron was a good candidate for the MVP. However, with Giannis balling the way he is, and we got 35 buckets per game, I don't know who saw that coming. He's developing incredibly well. I think another underrated candidate for MVP is DeMarcus Cousins. He's currently averaging 30 points per game on the Pelicans. There was a lot of talk about whether or not he would be able to play well with Anthony Davis or if they would get along or how his attitude would be in New Orleans, but it seems like it's going incredibly well. Durant was talked about a lot for MVP, but right now he's only averaging 25 points per game. It's interesting how the scoring is so high that I can say only 25 points a game. Remember, like 1,000 years ago when Allen Iverson was averaging like 28, it was crazy. Or when Kobe was averaging 30, it was crazy. When I say Kevin Durant's only averaging 25, it sounds like a small amount because you got Giannis out here averaging 35 points per game. And then we got Porzingis averaging 29. He's a baller. I sincerely believe the Knicks might actually end up sneaking in the playoffs this year. They got rid of Melo. They got him out of there. And Porzingis is averaging 30 points, which, it seems like that's probably what New York had in mind by getting Melo out of there. I know it's been pretty popular for people to talk about whether or not it's going to be Kawhi Leonard, but I don't really see it. I'm not 100% sure. I've been told multiple times that he's an incredible defender. He's a two-way player, which I don't really understand as far as what two-way player means. People say you play defense and you play offense, but I always just thought like that was part of basketball. It's not football where like we have Dion who's going to play like wide receiver, then he's going to play safety. It's basketball. You're on the floor during the offense and the defense. I just don't think Kawhi Leonard is that impactful for him to be like the most valuable player because Popovich can win with anyone, as we've seen. My sleeper for MVP, which probably doesn't seem like a sleeper because he was a runner-up last year, is going to be James Harden. The reason I picked James Harden is because I got a feeling that with this whole Chris Paul trade thing going wrong and Chris Paul slowing the game down, I got a feeling people are really, really going to see how well and how effective James Harden is. When he's got somebody like CP3 distributing the ball, once they figure out that pace and get it worked out, I think James Harden's going to be averaging something like 35 points per game. I don't think Chris Paul has ever played with such a prolific scorer. Chris Paul has usually played with players that usually can't get their own buckets, i.e. Tyson Chandler from New Orleans Hornets back in the day, i.e. Blake Griffin, i.e. DeAndre Jordan. He's played with a lot of people that had to have difficulty actually scoring on their own. So my sleeper pick, for MVP is definitely going to be James Harden. However, I mean, the only problem we have with that really is that Chris Paul, he's not a Steve Nash. He's not a Steph Curry when it comes to dropping off the dime. He's not a Jason Kidd. He's not a Magic Johnson. Chris Paul is a John Stockton. Chris Paul is a Mark Jackson, somebody that can sit in the half court set, be that floor general, take care of the ball, make tough decisions, and he's not a punk. So with somebody facilitating that, once they get that figured out, I think D'Antoni, a coach who was the king of the fast break, under Don Nelson, and Chris Paul, someone that's the king of the half court set, once they get back together, I mean, you're going to see incredible things. I really, really think so. LeBron right now, as far as scoring goes, he's averaging 24.6 points per game. Now, the reason that's interesting is because it's not really just about the points with LeBron, because he's playing with, I don't want to say scrubs, but because he's playing with people that probably aren't at their best right now. He's averaging 24.6, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists, which those are really close to his career numbers. It's not a triple-double. Ever since Westbrook last year, we got really hung up in that whole, you gotta have to have a triple-double for the numbers to look completely right, which ironically kind of cost James Harden the MVP last year, because Westbrook was given the MVP because he had triple-double numbers. However, James Harden averaged more points than him per game. He averaged 1 less rebound, and he had more assists than him throughout the season. So if you think about it, Westbrook got it because his assist number was a double-digit number, but James Harden had more assists and he averaged more points. So if you average the most points and you have the most net assists, you would think he would receive MVP. However, that's just not how it worked out. And I think LeBron has often been overlooked because he hasn't averaged a triple-double, but his numbers are so solid that I think people have actually gotten to a point where they're just we've gotten bored. We've gotten spoiled from seeing LeBron be so good. He's averaging 24, 7, and 8 as a small forward that plays point guard. If you let LeVar Ball tell it, according to him, he'd probably believe it's Lonzo, his son, is going to get MVP. But in my mind, I think that my sleeper right now is going to definitely be James Harden. Once they get this whole thing figured out, it's going to be an incredible thing. I'm not very surprised by, I am surprised by Westbrook not averaging so many points. That means that the Westbrook experiment with giving him actual players that can score is working out really well. If he was averaging 25 or 30, I mean, even 20 points per game, then, I mean, you could be concerned about him. But it looks like right now he's actually averaging 20.8, which is good for him because that means that he's distributing the ball. He's probably taking a lot of shots, but he doesn't have the ball as long as he had it last year. There was actually a complaint about him actually passing the ball too much. Just recently, he gave up a shot to Carmelo Anthony, which the critics went wild about why he didn't take the shot. But I mean, prior with years with Durant, complaints for that he was taking too many shots. So it's good to see Westbrook taking advantage of having talent on his team. However, he probably won't be getting the MVP again this year. Again, my sleeper for this year is going to be James Harden, which doesn't really seem like a sleeper. However, he's not really talked about as much as in the MVP race. They've talked about Giannis. We've talked about LeBron. We've talked about Kawhi Leonard. I'm going to go with Harden because I believe once they get that whole thing figured out, it's going to be incredible. Also, I just want to point this out. DeMarcus Cousins is averaging 30. Anthony Davis is averaging 27. Now, I don't know how they're able to average that many points together, but those twin towers are going to be a problem in the upcoming future. Once they get a point guard on that team, it's going to be an issue. I remember people were talking about whether or not those two big guys could play together. But the great thing is, both of them have guard abilities. It's interesting. Anthony Davis, he began playing basketball as a guard and hit a massive growth spurt. That's why he can't shoot the ball and can't handle the ball. I don't know what DeMarcus Cousins' background story is, but he handles the ball like a guard pretty well. He actually would go up to the well out here at Sac State and play with kids, because he can dribble, he can shoot. So when you got two big men that are both versatile and both kind of know their role in the paint, but also can play on the outside, that whole stretch four type of thing, you've got an issue. I mean, that's a really good combination between, I'm going to say, Dirk and Shaq. That sounds crazy, I know, but that's the best example I have for you right now on that. So just to reiterate, we got James Harden for MVP. That's how I feel. I know people are talking about Steph Curry, but I think that we got so much Warrior hate out there that they're probably not going to let it happen. We're still talking about people are still upset about Steph Curry getting unanimous MVP, which isn't really a big thing. Unanimous just means no one else was voted. The MVP is MVP. It doesn't really make that big of a difference. So that's where we're at with MVP. And that concludes my short take on the NBA MVP race. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Please join me next time for another episode. Are you looking to spice things up in the bedroom? Been fantasizing about surprising your lover with an adventurous new toy or adult movie? Well, here's an offer you won't be able to resist. Go to adamandeve.com for a limited time only. You'll get 50% off just about any item. But that's not all. When you select an item at 50%, you'll also receive 3 free adult DVDs for a little inspiration, plus a free extra gift. So sensual that I can't even mention on the air because we might lose some sponsoring. And to top it all off, they'll even throw in free shipping off the entire order. They're not kidding. So you're going to get free shipping. You're going to get a free gift after you order basically any item at 50% off. So check out adamandeve.com today for this special offer. Get 50% off any item when you type HOOP in the offer code. Again, that's HOOP in the offer code upon checkout.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.